Hey geeks, welcome to another exciting episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm Dave McCarter. I'm glad you're all here this week. And I hope you've had a better week than I have. My week started out really awesome because I got to see Mahesh, who runs C# Corner on Wednesday. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was during that or a couple days before, I got sick and been running a fever, and I did test for COVID yesterday. I don't have it, but since I'm taking a trip tomorrow morning, which I'm actually checking into right now while I'm trying to run the show, I'm going to do another COVID test this afternoon. So hopefully everything's okay, but I'm still kind of running a fever. So if I do or say anything dumb during the show, please forgive me, but I think I kind of do that during the shows anyway. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell very much. But anyway, we have a great show today, and let's get to it. So today's show features Paul Michaels. He's the head of development at Music Magpie, and he's also a Microsoft MVP, so he's going to be my guest today. I'm excited about that. He loves rock music, so I'm wearing my AC/DC hat in honor of Paul because I love AC/DC. Maybe he does too. Actually, he just told me he saw their last big tour, which I also saw. And we're going to be talking about some cool stuff today, including architecture and meetups in a post-pandemic world. So I hope you stick around. I hope you have questions. Please put your questions in now in the comments, and then I'll try to get to them as much as possible. Let's see. All right. We're still dealing with this crap in the Ukraine. So please, take a moment to think about our friends in the Ukraine. And hopefully this war will be over sooner than later. It's very sad to see what's going on there. But anyway, keep them in your thoughts. I hope they can repair this, the country fast, because I want to go speak there before I retire again. If you all have been watching the show, you probably know I spoke there in 2015, and I've been wanting to go back ever since. And so I guess that's going to be put on hold, at least for a little while, because who knows what buildings are left anymore. But luckily I spoke in Lviv, which, hasn't really been bombed too much, thankfully. So anyway, think about our friends in the Ukraine. Also, if you happen to live in Australia, I'm going next month. I'm so happy. It'll be my first in-person speaking gig since 2019. I can't believe it's going to be like 3.5 years or 2.5 years since I spoke when I speak there. I'm actually a little bit nervous because I haven't spoken in so long. I'm afraid my mouth won't work right, or I don't know. But I am a little bit nervous about going and speaking for the first time in such a long time. It's the longest time I haven't spoke anywhere since I started speaking almost 30 years ago. So anyway, if you live in Australia, specifically Melbourne, please hit me up. I want to hang out with you and get to know the area and get to know the developers. And so please feel free to reach out to me if you hang out in Melbourne. If you live in that area, I hope you go to NDC and watch me talk about code performance, something where we all need to be mindful of especially when you're moving to the cloud. And I have some really, really cool things. I've been working really hard to present to the people in Australia before I write about it. So I hope you come to the session. All right. My latest article, I just submitted an article to C# Corner. And sorry, I'm trying to get my OneNote up yesterday, but this is my latest article. So that one should be up in a couple days, but I hope you'll check out the current one up there. Coding faster with .NET tips, Spargene 6, validating arguments made easy. So when I converted my Spargene project to .NET 6, I decided to completely rip out the method attribute validation that I had in version 5. And in version 6, it's completely different with fluid validation. And so I hope you read the article and see how I set it up, and hopefully you'll like it. And either use the library or steal it and use it in your own library. I don't really care. You know, I read it for you guys and myself. So I hope you go check it out. All right. And now I've lost my intro for my speaker. Where are you? 56? Oh, no. Did I just wipe out Paul's intro? Hold on, everybody. Let me look. Oh, nope, there it is. I see it. It came back. Sorry. I told you I'm running a fever. So today's show is going to be a little wonky, I think. So because I think the next slide is Paul. So I'd like to introduce Paul, and hopefully I won't screw up his bio. Paul started programming back on the 7X spectrum, which I'd love to hear what that is because I've never heard of it, while in primary school, and has been programming professionally since '97. He's a published author, speaker, founder, and co-organizer of MiniHack. While not programming, he enjoys cycling, walking, rock music, cooking, beer, often all in parallel. So welcome, Paul. Hey, there you are.
It was a ZX spectrum, not a 7X spectrum.
Oh, sorry. See, I've never heard of it. So, you know.
Oh, you've never heard of the ZX spectrum?
No.
Okay.
You must be older than me. No,
I know. I'm starting to wonder if I'm older than everyone these days.
I already know I'm older than everybody. I just, that's the way I think, especially in the teams I work in. Yeah, I'm the oldest person. You know, I feel like I'm everybody's grandpa these days.
So the ZX Spectrum was an amazing machine. I don't think they've yet to sort of parallel its gameplay or anything. If you wanted to play a game, what you would do is you would get an audio tape, you know, the old cassette decks, cassette tape, and you would put it in and you would play it, and the sound would be read and converted to thing, and you'd get like these little lines on the side of the screen where it'd sort of load up. Yeah. And it'd take about 10 minutes to load a game.
Yeah.
They had such brilliant titles as Jet Set Willy and Manic Miner and all this kind of stuff. So it was a brilliant machine.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of when I was in the Navy. The last couple of years I was in the Navy, I was on shore duty here in San Diego. And sometimes at lunchtime, I would go up to this woman's office, and she had this computer, and I would go play a game, and it was on reel-to-reel tape. You know, like we used to record sound on, right? It was on a reel-to-reel tape, and that's how the game was played. And I was, I'm sure young people now are going, what? You can't play a game on a reel. I don't think they even know what a reel-to-reel tape is, right?
It's from The Prisoner, isn't it? They used to have that on The Prisoner all the time, didn't they? If they were doing anything, I don't know if anybody remembers The Prisoner with Patrick McGowan, but if they were doing any kind of technology, it'd have the reel-to-reel tapes on. They'd use it to like encode his brain or whatever they were doing to him that week. Yeah.
Simon, do you know what reel-to-reel tape is? Let's see what Simon says. He'll say in a minute, because Simon's the youngest person on this show right now, so I can ask the young questions to him. He doesn't know. See, Simon doesn't know what reel-to-reel tape is. And you're joining us from the UK. Where specifically in the UK?
So I technically live in Derbyshire, but I'm sort of the closest town, I suppose, is Buxton. So just outside of Manchester. I imagine if I was in America, I would describe myself as living in Manchester, because I'm about 20 miles outside of Manchester. But in the UK, 20 miles is a long way.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you spending part of your evening, on the show today. So I hope everybody else does too, because you could be hanging out with family or friends, and instead of talking to us. So I appreciate it.
I think I quite like talking about software architecture and spectrums and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, everybody. Paul wants to talk about architecture and also, how do we do meetups in a post-pandemic world is something else you wanted to talk about also, which I'd like to talk about also because, quite frankly, our .NET user group here in San Diego is gone now, so we don't even have, we're the 8th largest city in America, and now we don't even have a .NET user group anymore. When I had my group, there was actually 2 groups, and now we're down to 0. So
it's a strange situation, isn't it? Because prior to coronavirus, I don't know what the situation is in America, but I'm guessing it's roughly analogous. That there was, say, within traveling distance of me, there was probably 2 or 3 .NET user groups. So if I'm prepared to kind of give up an entire night, I can get to one or the other. Now that everybody's gone online, I can attend literally 1 every single night, in some cases 2 a night, and I don't have to leave my house. So
yeah.
And the problem is, I think that's kind of killing the in-person thing, because previously, I suppose it's partly whether or not you're back in the office, isn't it? Because when I used to go to one used to be one in Manchester, so I used to work in Manchester. I'd just sort of finish work and go. But I don't really work in an office anymore. I kind of work at home. So if I'm going to go to a user group, and I'm guessing the same thing is true, that side of the Atlantic, that you've got to basically work at home all day and then go, right, now I'm going out just to go to the user group. So it's a much more of an investment to go for, I think. And so I'm not sort of coming with an agenda. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's different. I think it's changing kind of everything.
Yeah, when the conferences, stopped, one of the things that I hoped would happen when they came back, which I see in some of the conferences at least, is that, they're going to a hybrid model, that's, which I think is a good thing to do, because you get more reach, but you also get to take care of the people who actually want to come and network. And that's, one thing I've talked about on the show over and over again is, the biggest reason I go to conferences or user groups is to network and talk to people, not for the session, right? Because most of that stuff you can get online, or you can see the recording or something like that. But, the networking with actual humans, is really valuable, not only to, improve your career, but also help find jobs and all these kind of things too. Because, I can definitely say, and I've written an article about this, that, most of my jobs in San Diego have come one way or the other from the user group I used to run, or speaking in San Diego. And so it's very valuable to actually be there, and even, when I ran my user group, one of the things I had a hard time getting people to do after the meeting was to go up the street here where I live, because we used to work. I mean, my user group used to meet like 2 blocks from my house. I mean, I can walk there in like 5 minutes, and then we'd go up the street to have some drinks or food afterwards. And it was the after the user group meeting where I learned even more, and I know why, people want to go home, see their families and stuff like that. So I get why a lot of people didn't come out, but I always valued that time, because again, I got to learn more, I got to network more, and have bigger reach into my own community.
Yeah, that's pretty much I think that's been my take on it. That it's great. It's great seeing these talks, but if that's all you're after, I mean, NDC now publish all of the talks, and I'm guessing most of the other conferences, they just publish all of the talks for free on YouTube,
right?
Days or weeks after they've actually happened. So if that's why you're going, then you're kind of wasting a lot of money, aren't you? Because some of these things are not free. But as you've just said, it's the sort of I don't want to use the term after party, but I suppose I just have. But it's also if you see somebody talking about something, you can go and ask them a question, and you can say, well, actually, what would you do in this situation, or whatever, and you can kind of carry on the conversation outside of that venue, as you've just said, I suppose. So I think, it's about, I think conferences and so on are going to have the problem they're going to have is I suppose conferences are a bit different because you were always putting yourself out for a conference. Like you always went from your house to the conference type of thing. There was never I happen to be 3 yards away in work, so I'll just kind of call in on my way home type of thing. But I think the user groups are going to have to think about how do we engage people. Maybe the answer is to bribe people to come, or I don't know, food.
Yeah, well, that's what we did at my group. We always had pizza every night, and that we met, and and so that bribed some people to come, I think. We also gave away stuff too, so that software developers, they'll do anything for something free. All right, so it doesn't matter what it is. It's stupid t-shirt, they'll be screaming and yelling for it. It's different since when I started. I used to see people literally fight over t-shirts. I don't see that much anymore, but
I think everybody's got a drawer full of t-shirts now. They can't
most of my I've got a concert shirt on today, but most of my shirts are all from conferences and stuff like that. That's what I wear every day.
Pretty much, I'm the same. And I used to come home with whatever conference I went to, I come home with 2 or 3 t-shirts, and then after a bit, my wife said, "You've run out of drawer space now." Like,
yeah.
Because the other problem is I find t-shirts like I'm wearing now, and then I think, I want to get a Red Dwarf t-shirt, or I want to get a Doctor Who t-shirt or something, or whatever it is, or Motorhead or AC/DC, and then that has to go in the drawer next to me, whatever t-shirt it is I got from the last conference. And at some point, when one's got to go, it's the one that I haven't paid 20 or 30 quid for.
Yeah, and I'm running out of shirts because I haven't been to conferences, in 2.5 years. So I need some new I need some new clothing. Come on, conferences, invite me to come speak. I need new stuff, especially since I haven't gone to Microsoft in 3 years. I usually pick up a couple of things at the Microsoft store when I'm there. So that hasn't been happening either. But getting back to the user groups real quick is the one challenge with user groups that at least when I ran mine is getting dedicated people to really help you out and always be there for what you need for the meetings. And if user groups try to do like a hybrid meeting, then that's a lot more work to try to have an in-person meeting and do all the old visual for the hybrid meeting too. That's more work, and so someone has to be in charge of that. And if someone doesn't step up and be kind of like a regular person, or 2 people be the regular person to make sure that happens every time the group meets, then it kind of defeats the purpose in a way, I guess. We're getting spam on the comments today. Great. You see that, Simon? Simon will get rid of those. So yeah. So
I suppose the other thing. I mean, one of the things that we sort of realized after coronavirus hit was that there was not many interactive user groups, if you like. So for want of a better word, so we as you sort of introduced at the start, I set up a group, a sort of hackathon, but a 2-hour hackathon. Mm-hmm. So basically we run a thing every month to say, come along and we'll give you something to kind of produce, if you like, in basically you get an hour and a half by the time we finished with the intro and the outro and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And we started it and we were like, well, actually, how's this going to work? Because most hackathons are days, like 48-hour hackathon, and you bring your sleeping bag and all that kind of stuff. And the guy that I started with was like, well, it's a bit. I don't know whether this is going to work because what are you going to be able to do in an hour and a half? And it works. It works amazingly well. People produce low. We've had some, and obviously it's not like production software, but
Sure.
and most of it's I suppose we play it more for kind of the fun factor than we do for the how brilliant is your software engineering type of thing. But so we an example of thing that we had produced was we had a guy. One of the challenges was we basically gave people a jigsaw piece, like a PNG of a jigsaw piece, or four or six PNGs of a jigsaw piece, and we said sort of do something cool with that. And this team rendered it in Excel. So they used Excel and they changed the color of the cells in Excel such that the cells in Excel became pixels. So when you zoomed out, it rendered the jigsaw piece in Excel. So it's weird stuff like that.
Yeah, I was looking at that repository this morning, actually. I was looking, I went to your link, that I shared on your slide, and I was looking at it, and I hit that one with the Excel, and I was going, what? There's a program.cs in Excel? What is this?
Yeah, very, very, very unusual way of doing it. But yeah, I mean, because when we started it, we were like, well, how is this even going to work? Because, I'd not seen an online sort of hackathon, let alone an online hackathon in an hour and a half. But it does seem to work. The format seems to work anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, and yeah, I mean, hopefully after we spoke earlier, we'll get you in as a guest judge to come and help us out.
More than happy to help you out. This actually, the UK is somewhere I've always wanted to come speak, and mainly because that's where my heritage is from. I'm part Scottish, Irish, Dutch, German, and I've never been to that part of the world, unfortunately, and I've always wanted to come. And so every year this week was NDC London, and I think every year I apply to that just so I can go see why I like bagpipe music so much. I'm serious. I love bagpipe music. I don't know why.
I don't think you'll hear any bagpipe music in London unless you.
No, I know. But
unless you bring your own.
Yeah, it's Scotland. But anyway, So do you want to, because we're almost at the half-hour mark, do you want to start talking about architecture? And you also listed your Azure and serverless and how that paradigm shift is working.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in terms of architecture, I mean, my sort of thing, what I was interested in discussing with architecture is kind of what software architecture is, I suppose, and kind of where what somebody who would term themselves a software architect would do, and what that means, and pretty much, I've worked at a few places that have got a job titles of software architects, and they've all been different. So I think the kind of broad answer is a software architect is whatever you point at when you say the word. But I mean, I suppose software architecture to me is a bit like testing, in terms of you can't not do it, in terms of you physically can't not do it. If you don't architect something and you give it to somebody, you give it to like the guy who started last week, it still gets architected. It just gets architected by him as he's typing. He might not architect it well. It's the same with software testing, isn't it? So if you don't have a software testing plan, your software will still be tested unless you delete it as soon as you finish writing it. It just gets tested by your users.
Right.
So, and it's the same thing, isn't it? It's just, you just need to make a decision. Who do I want to design my software? Who do I want to test my software? And if your answer can be, I've given this to this this sort of junior programmer or whatever, and I want him to architect my software, in which case that's a valid decision. But but you might same with testing. If you give your software to your end users, your customers to test, you might regret that at some point because you might start losing customers, or however that kind of works. So I suppose, that was kind of the first thing I sort of wanted to talk about in terms of how that kind of sits, and who's responsible for sort of the architecture of a system, and why it kind of doesn't make sense to say, well, we don't. It's not, it's fine to not have a software architect. We're not like in the building industry where if you sort of, you built a house and somebody said, where are the plans? And it's like, we don't get any plans. It'd be condemned immediately, because you can't just have a guy laying bricks when he doesn't know where to lay them and stuff. But
right. That's the analogy that, especially when I'm talking to non-tech people, I use is building a house, right? I think most people kind of understand how a house is built because they've seen it in different stages, when they drive by, a new neighborhood or something like that. And or even I've been, because I watch too much Netflix, I even think about movies, right? But for houses, do you think they just sit in a meeting, and decide what the house should be, and then walk over to the plot of land and start building? No, that's not how it works, right? But for some reason, too many teams out there think that's how it should work, right? Is you should be able to go from this meeting and go sit at your desk and start coding what we just talked about, right? And if you do that, you're destined for your project to fail or be so out of touch with current practices and everything that when you do want to make a change, it's going to be near impossible to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I suppose that kind of dovetails into the other thing, which is that one of the things that I suppose your architect or your architecture will give you. I don't like saying your architect, because actually your architect can be a senior dev, or it can be a dev, whatever. You don't need to have somebody whose job title it is to be an architect. Depending on the size of the system, you can
right.
But one of the things that I think they probably should be thinking about is non-functional requirements. I mean, obviously, if you want to sit, it looks like you're getting spammed again, by the way.
I know. Hey, Simon, do you see the spam? Can you get rid of the spam? It's irritating me.
Yeah, so
sorry, go. Yeah, there you go.
You get your requirements, and I don't know, they want a website that sells widgets or whatever, and that's kind of when you sort of end user or customer comes to you, that's what they want. They want a website that sells widgets. If you said to them, do you want this website to be scalable or reliable, they'd lose faith in you as a professional architect, because they'd be like, well, of course we do. Like, why are you asking? That's a ridiculous question.
Right.
So it's teasing them kind of requirements out to say, okay, well, I'm gonna just turn the comments off, because that's
Simon, the comments are going on again. Sorry everybody who's watching. This, I guess my show is so popular, I'm getting spam now. No, I'm just kidding, but we
that means
apologize.
You made it, done it, right?
Yeah, we apologize. We don't have control over some idiots doing that stuff, but we can stop them. But they're all bots anyway, and so they'll just come back in a couple minutes with another bot. So we apologize. I wish we could do something about it, but anyway, if I see any comments, I'll relay them to you if you don't want to watch.
Was it Elon Musk that said he was going to pull out of that? Or I don't know. He's talking about pulling out of that Twitter purchase because of too many bots on Twitter.
Who knows what Elon is thinking? I think he's probably having buyer's remorse, and he just wants to say, "Yeah, this is too much. I want to. How can I get out of this and not look like a dummy?"
It's costing him $1 billion. Is it $1 billion to get out of it though? If he don't go through with it, it's $1 billion to just pull out. I suppose.
Well, that
you know,
too. Yeah, that, and I know people are canceling their Tesla sales too. So
all right, okay.
in America, yeah, and so it's costing them in other ways too. So I don't want him on Twitter. I barely like Twitter as it is, but I definitely don't think I would like it with him on it. But that's why I keep tweeting to Jeff Fritz that he needs to build a new Twitter as part of his show that he does every week.
I'm gonna say online while people watch, just build Twitter.
Yeah, and build a
That
new
would be
Twitter.
impressive. That would.
How hard can it be, really? It's just 200. It's some certain characters and a couple links, and come on. No, I thought about it for a split second. I go, I could do that. But then who's going to moderate the content? And I don't want to do that. So forget it.
Yeah,
because we'll have people like this person, spamming, my new Twitter site.
Yeah, no, actually, interestingly, it sort of nicely comes back to sort of what I was saying about architecture. So your non-functional requirements, like you're just talking about we rewrite Twitter or whatever. Your non-functional requirement there is your scalability. So
Right.
Twitter maybe now not, but in the early days it was a relatively simple concept. You just you just type something and you press OK and it ends up in a persisted data store somewhere.
Right.
But obviously there's a thing there where if a billion people are doing that at the same time, then you've got to kind of cope with that, and what happens with the how do you scale it and so on. But this was what I was saying about it. It's a conversation that it takes a bit of practice to have, because obviously if you say, well, do you want your application to be scalable? Do you want it to be reliable? Yeah, take. Yeah. Obviously, what for scalability, it's about how scalable you want it. So you say, how scalable do you want it? Well, if everybody in the world joined it at the same time, would you want to cope with that? Yes. Okay. Well, this is how much it's going to cost to build it.
Yeah.
No, I don't want it to cost that much. I think there was on availability. I was listening to something the other day about the amount of money it costs every time you get like 5 nines availability. So every 9 you add on to that is like an exponential amount of money that's ridiculous.
Right.
And obviously you can do that. So you can
Sure.
Even in the cloud you can do that. You can have you can fail over across clouds, and you can write software. I'm guessing if you're writing a software for a nuclear reactor or something, right, that's got to be 100% reliable.
Right.
No matter how much that costs, you can't have that go down.
Right.
But at the same time, nobody's writing software for a nuclear reactor is putting it on the internet and
yeah, that's true.
Communicating over.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, you would hope not. Yeah, and the same with like I was a couple of years ago, I think, I can't remember, it was .NET Rocks, they were talking about, they were trying to recruit the last Fortran developer or whatever, because the Hubble telescope or something is written in Fortran, and the guy who was writing it retired, and they were like, they're looking for like another guy, but nobody does it anymore. So they're sort of looking for somebody who's kind of coasting that retirement type of thing to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing. What's important with the Hubble telescope is reliability. 100%. It has to be 100% reliable, because if it's not, then billions of dollars of kit kind of fly into the sun. Or I know nothing about space travel or nuclear reactors, so I've no idea what would happen if that software broke. But
right.
I'm guessing it's not a good story if your nuclear reactor software goes on the blink.
Yeah.
So
hey Simon, we're getting more spam. Sorry to bug you, Simon. Gosh, they just won't leave me alone today. Jeez, this is the worst it's been. It's probably because you're from the UK. Maybe that's it. But the number one. Well, there's a lot of number one things I see companies not doing well, but pretty much the lack of architecture is pretty high up there to me. And you're right about your job title, because, I've been architecting, successful projects, and even one that became, that I'm a patent inventor now, and for a long time. But, my current position, which I just got a couple months ago, is the first time I've actually had the title, right? So that's my title. I'm an actual real architect as far as title goes now. But even though I've been one for, a really long time, right? I think if you write apps from scratch, you basically are an architect, right? And not everybody can be one, and not everybody's great at it, but it's something that, companies, to me, if they don't put the money into architecture, they're going to pay for it somewhere else, right? And usually that's always means losing customers. So I've warned companies over and over again, if you do X or Y, you're going to lose customers, and they don't listen to me, and they do it, and they lose customers, right?
Well,
and it's just,
yeah, that's the thing, and it's so you, yeah, I mean, exactly what you've just said. If you, it's just making that decision clear, isn't it? If you say, I don't want to employ an architect, or I don't want my software to be architected, you're not really saying I don't want my software to be architected.
Right.
You're saying I want my software to be architected by that guy. And it's like, okay, who's that guy?
Junior person that we just hired.
What's his credentials? Well, he left school like 6 months ago, and he's just learning JavaScript or something. And it's like, okay, so how many systems has he worked on? What's the what's his take on how to write scalable software, whatever. The guy might be a genius. I'm not, disparaging this imaginary guy we just made up. But the likelihood is that he's, there's going to be a little bit of copy and paste, and there's going to be a little bit of just kind of get something working, and it's going to be tested on his machine, and it's going to be a one-person test, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to spend, like, £500 or whatever that is in dollars on a website, and you expect 5 people a month to go and see it, that's fine. No problem with that.
Yeah.
If you're writing a massive website that's going to be visited by thousands or hundreds of thousands of users, then you're going to start hitting scalability problems very quickly. Right. Or just I suppose the same thing with security, for example. So what's and to be fair, security is a bit of an interesting one, because I think certainly on the Microsoft stack, it's becoming harder and harder to write insecure software now.
Yes. Yes.
So, file new and you've got a secure project. You kind of don't have to do anything. And even things like the, I don't know if you've seen on Azure now, you can pretty much turn on an SSL certificate just by, you just go in and press a couple of buttons, you've got SSL. Which it wasn't rocket science, but it was certainly not straightforward before. It was sort of messing about with let's encrypt and all this kind of business, or you had to go and pay somebody to give you a certificate. But with Azure now, it's so much simpler. And I think that's the way that's kind of the way we got to go with security. Just if you don't do anything, you kind of secure, unless you should be trying to fight it to make it less secure.
Yeah, that's true. And I think teams are getting slightly better, but at least in my experience in my entire career, teams never put enough work on security. I think most companies think of security, we'll worry about it when we get broken into or something, right? Because we don't want to spend the money to harden it now. We'll harden it when something happens, right? And even, this one company I was working at, 12, 13 years ago, the architect, we had 2 architects, and before the release of the product I was working on, I walked up to the architect and I said, I told him, this isn't secure. We need to make sure it's secure, before we release it at the end of the year. And he's going, no, don't worry about it. We'll worry about it after we release it. I'm just going, what are you talking about? You're an architect and you're saying this? Come on, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I've and the other interesting thing about security is, I suppose one thing that is worth bearing in mind is what you're trying to secure. and how
Right.
secure you're trying to make it. So, I mean, ultimately, you know, it's like your house, and so you can never be 100% secure. Like you can put, you know, you can go to like Fort Knox or something, and that's a secure building, but it's not 100% secure. Like it is physically possible to get into that building. It's like, you know, you watch, I don't know if you watch like Prison Break or something like that, you know, however secure
Parachute on
something
top,
is.
or
Yeah. But whatever the way around is, ultimately someone's going to get in. So it tends to be the same thing as with a house. It's what is it you're trying to protect, and who are you trying to protect it against?
Right.
Because obviously them considerations are different. If you're writing a public facing website, which I suppose most people think of when they think security, they think, oh, I'm writing a public facing website, so I need to deal with a credential stuffing attack, or I need to deal with somebody trying to brute force a password or whatever. But quite often there's other security considerations, because obviously, you know, in websites don't make 100% of development activity, so there's other problems. So, you know, one thing might be, you know, say you're writing an internal cache test system. Well, one person you might be trying to secure that against is the person who's using it, like legitimately using it, but actually, you know, got the hand in the till or whatever. And it's, how do you do that? I mean, that was one of the things that I was investigating recently with, you know, event sourcing, which is, you know, it's sort of a way that you can track what's happened to the system in a way that makes it pretty difficult to sort of mess about with the history, because after a bit it's kind of you sort of end up with a sort of audit trail by default if you're using that kind of that kind of paradigm.
And actually, that it reminds me of, you know, this project that I'm helping with at work right now, and that is, you know, the company is really getting behind telemetry, you know, and like you're saying, event sourcing, you know, activities, and then also logging, you know, that goes to, you know, an open telemetry, and then it goes back into the Splunk and everything, and for those exact reasons you were saying, right? Because one of the projects I'm in charge of right now, you know, the security team has told me that their biggest beef with it is that they don't know who's hitting it, you know, and that I've got to, you know, make sure that's, you know, brought up in the next meetings, you know, when we go and harden that software. But yeah, you're right, and even that's becoming, you know, back 10 years ago, all we did was log stuff, but now it's becoming, you know, this open telemetry which is good. But that just, there's more, you know, things you have to do to get it to work and fart around with to make sure everything gets, hey, Simon, they're spamming us again. You know, there's so many more things, you know, you have to get working right for that. And what do you think about, you know, the batching of the things going up and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot to think about, you know, for only something like that. But you're right. And especially for, you know, industry like the one I work with, where we deal with people's, you know, credit card information and things like that. It's even more, you know, it's even more important security because of that. And there's actually projects I'm working on now to make that more difficult to get at, right? To make it more difficult to get credit card information, you know, from our system if someone hacks into it, right? And so these are things we all have to worry about now. And you know, I'll probably say this until, you know, I stop talking about software engineering, but, you know, things were easier when I started, you know, probably you too, you know, we did have so many things to worry about back then. And I mean, we still had to worry about security and things like that. But, you know, even when I worked for this company, we did online gambling, you know, we would tell investors that, you know, yeah, we're going to secure it, but, you know, we're more worried about an internal person stealing the data, not an external person, right? Because that's something else you have to harden against, is the internal people have admin access to everything, can get into anything they want, right?
So I actually used to work for a a company that did gambling software as well, and for exactly the same thing. So we had our biggest threat was people who. So we distribute this to like betting shops. Our biggest threat was the people who worked in the betting shops. That basically using the machines to, and obviously the problem there is you you're already on the back foot because the guy can't do his job unless you give him sufficient access to do his job, and then it's like, well, hang on, how much access is this, and exactly what can he do with this access, and so on and so forth. So it is a very difficult problem when, I mean, if you, at least with a website, if it's just a case of I want to defend against a brute force password attack, that's an external person coming into your site. There's certainly these days, that can be a relatively straightforward. You can go, okay, well, you tried 3 times, you're frozen for 5 minutes or something.
Did we lose Paul, Simon? Nope, that's an actual name. Simon? Oh.
I think I got kicked.
Something happened. David says that he needs your handles to oh, you're asking me. Just go to dotNetTips.com. Everything is there, David. Who I don't know who that is, but on YouTube, I guess it looks like. Anyway, I'm sorry. Something happened and you dropped, or who knows what happened.
Yeah.
What were you saying? Do you remember?
No. No, I don't.
Yeah. So, what, I did have one question. So since you've been around a long time like me, and if you do have a boss or a customer, somebody come up to you and you say, okay, well, we can do this feature, but it's going to take, it's going to take 2 weeks of architecture and let's just say something like that, and they balk at it. What's something you found that helps try to, get people to really pay attention to putting money into proper architecture?
So the problem we've got in this industry is we don't have, like, if you're an electrician, for example, in the UK, I don't know if this is true in the US, but in the UK,
US too. Yeah.
So if I get an electrician in here, right, I'm kind of his boss because I'm paying him money, right? If I go, okay, I want you to put a light switch in there, and I want you to basically run a line diagonally from this light switch to this thing, because I don't want to pay for the extra cable or whatever. He'll go, can't do that, because if I do it, I'll lose me certification.
Right.
We don't have,
or it won't pass inspection. Right.
Yeah. So but we don't have anything like that in software. So if somebody says, look, I want you, and I'm not sure I want to go as far as say we should, but we do write. There is software running. I was being facetious when I said nuclear reactors, but there is software running nuclear reactors, and software driving cars, and medical machines and flying planes and all this kind of stuff. We have a lot. Arguably, there's more stuff that can happen if you mess up a software system than if you drill through an electric wire.
Right. A lot
because
more.
The blast radius is bigger.
Right.
So that, I suppose, that's the first thing that I'd want to mention, that for someone who, like you just said, we've both kind of been in the industry a while. For a junior programmer, that is a hard conversation to have, because if it's like, okay, this system needs designing, it's going to take 3 months or whatever, and it's like, well, no, it needs to be out in a week. The temptation of just kind of hacking anything together to get it out in a week is going to be big for someone who's 18, 19, 20-year-old, straight out of school, just wants to make a name for themselves. The last thing they want to be doing is arguing with a boss and saying, no, you can't have this when you want it.
Right.
But I tend to find that the thing to do at that point is to have the discussion about what the impetus is. Like, why do you need to get it out in a week, or why do you need to get it out in 2 weeks, whatever it is? And quite often, if you have that conversation, you can come up with a reduced version of that system that that will do the job. And I suppose, you know, that's kind of one of the things that I suppose an architect in inverted commas would provide value for, which is, do you actually need the system that you've asked for? Because quite often the question you'll get is, you know, we need a brand new microservice to process this data, and it needs to do this and do that and do the other. And quite often the question of, well, what exactly is it? What problem are you trying to solve? Never gets answered. Never gets asked. So you know, it's like, okay, we've decided that we need a microservice architecture. We've decided we need an event sourced architecture, or whatever it is, and then you know, you've solved some problems that you may or may not have, but you've introduced a load of new problems that you might not have had before.
Right.
So, you know, I feel like if as a again, you know, I'm going to use the inverted commas as an architect, as a person who's doing architecture. So whether that be a programmer or whatever, if you can say, look, you do not need this system, which, you know, is a bit different from, you get an electrician out and he goes, you don't need a light switch. You can't really do that. But it's, if you say, look, you don't need this system, you can just use a pen and paper for the thing that you want to do, then use a pen and paper, because it's far more secure and reliable, and
it is.
It's a lot cheaper. Like you know, it might be a case of, well, no, you can't use a pen and paper because there's a million people who are trying to use this. Okay, well, that's a reasonable requirement at that point. But you know, if you've one you know, an example of one of the systems I worked on in my early career was a program. I think we spent 6 months on it to produce mortgage quotes, and at the end of it, we ended up with this effectively forms over data thing that fed into Access, and it basically just said, you know, how much are they asking for a mortgage for, and the name and address and all this kind of stuff. And it was, you know, it probably took the guy who was going out to see people about the same amount of time to fill in this form as it would have taken him to just write out the answers. And then he'd print it out. So it's like, that's a brilliant example.
What are you really solving? Right.
Yeah, that's a brilliant example of, you've just wasted a fair amount of money on something that's just not necessary. And I suppose that's the problem, because obviously if you make your money from software development, and someone says, "I want you to do some software development," it's tempting to go, "Yeah, okay, I'll do some software development." Same way as if you make your money from laying bricks, and someone says, "I want a wall," very rarely you're going to go, "Why? Why do you want this wall outside your door? What are you going to do with it?" You're just going to start laying bricks. So, I think that's one of the interesting, one of the benefits that software developers can give. And I suppose, you know, we're in a time at the minute where I don't know what it's like in America, but I assume it's the same as in the UK. The amount of software developers to job ratio, like there's probably 2 or 3 jobs for every programmer out there. And so that sort of puts you in a bit more of a secure position, if you like, in terms of you know, it feels more comfortable being able to say you don't need the thing that you just asked for, or you know, it's not necessary, because, you know, I've as I imagine you have gone through, you know, the period shortly after the .NET boom bust thing in, like, you know, early 2000s, where people were being laid off left, right, and center. The idea of saying, well, no, you've just employed me to do something, but I don't think you need it. That would have been insane. You'd be like, no, I've got to feed my family, and I've got to somehow make some money. But it's a bit different these days. So there's a lot more developers. We need a lot more developers, and, you know, quite frankly, my
my thought on that is we need a lot more better developers too. It's, I'll never shut up if I go down that line. But I got to let you go because I only have a few minutes left, and I don't want any more spam getting on my show today. I think 4 times or whatever is enough. So I'm going to let you go. So the last 2, I really appreciate you being on, especially, all the way from the UK. And before I forget, I'm more than willing to, help you guys out at your meetups or hackathons anytime you want. Just let me know. Give me some time to schedule it. I'll always be there. But the last 2 questions I always ask everybody is, which you kind of said in your bio, but what do you, besides coding, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, so I do cycling. Most of the time, if you if you see me during the day when it's sunny like today, I'll be out cycling somewhere around the Peak District. And I can dovetail this into the second question I think you're going to ask me.
Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, so I do quite a bit of programming in my spare time, but I also write about programming. So I've recently had a book published.
Oh, awesome.
And now I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
you can put the link in the private chat, and Simon can post it on the screen. Yeah.
So that's the link, and this is a discount code as well for the book that I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to give out, but I'll give it out now.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I suppose I've written a book about the things we've been talking about today. So the types of software architecture, how you would go about defining requirements, and all the good things that we've just spoken about.
Awesome. I'll check it out.
And yeah, just as you said in the intro, cooking, beer, music at the same time, usually. Just
that's the best thing, right? It's getting warmer here, so everybody's looking forward to the barbecues and outside. And now that we're finally, we're not over COVID, but at least people are acting like it more and more. I think it's going to be a pretty crazy summer coming up.
It's like 20 degrees here, and it's pretty much as hot as it's been all year, and probably as hot as it will be for the rest of the year.
Well, I gotta let you go before my awesome producer Simon gets upset at me. But since I'm not feeling good, I want to go anyway. So, well, I don't. But
been great.
Been
great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks. And anytime you want to come back and talk about software architecture or anything like that, please let me know. And you're welcome to come back anytime you want.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Well, that was a really great discussion with Paul. I enjoyed it, even though I'm under the weather. I apologize to everybody for the spamming that was happening during that segment. Like I said, we don't have control over that, but we try to squash it down as fast as possible. So I just have a few more slides, and then I can go to the pharmacy. So if you're worried about code performance, and you should be, especially if you're moving to the cloud, you can go to my website. Go to that link there, and a lot of my code performance book is up there. I'm working on new metrics and everything right now, and so that'll be up there soon too. So I hope you go check that out. And as always, every week, everybody gets a free copy of Code Rush from DevExpress, the only refactoring tool I've used in Visual Studio. So I hope you'll try it out too. It's a real licensed copy. It's what I use every day when I'm coding, and I've been coding every day lately because I've been working really hard on my new releases for Spargin. And then I have a new project I'm really excited about getting to work on probably next month, or maybe after I get back from Australia. So check that out. Also, don't forget my coding standards book. If your company doesn't have coding standards or needs better coding standards, which I see in most companies I go to, actually every company I go to, I'm sorry, go check out my book. It's on Amazon right now. Just go to that URL and or just go to Amazon and search for my name, and you can get my book. I greatly appreciate it. It's all the money goes to my retirement fund. So I hope you'll check it out, and let me know if you have any feedback for it too. I did find some humor because I tried to print something this week. During the pandemic, I haven't been printing a lot, and I think I tweeted that why can't they make a printer that can actually print if you haven't used it in a month or so? And so this kind of goes along with that. While I mostly connect people, the entire human knowledge, but I also play video games, music, blah blah blah. And the printer says I put ink on paper. Well, that's cool. You have your thing. I bet you're like a super dependable at it. Not really. Yeah. No kidding. Man, I cleaned my nozzle heads like 3 times and I still couldn't get the color to work properly. So I hope they make better printers that don't die now that we don't print much anymore. So they should really make printers that you can go a couple months without using them. That's my take on it. Also, no one's donated in the last couple months, but I hope you go to this page, to that link there, and help me help the kids from Delhi, India, in the orphanage there that we've raised money for. My last donation to them a month or 2 ago was almost $500. All that money came from you. So I appreciate that. So if you want to donate there, you can go there. You can scan the QR code. If you just want to donate directly, I rather you do that, actually. It doesn't go through me. Just go to voiceofslum.org, and you can they're always looking for you to buy everything from school supplies to clothes for the kids and things like that. And I hope to go there when I go to India this year in October. So help me help the kids from India. They really need your help, especially during these challenging times in the world right now. Thanks for watching. We're off until June 4th because Simon has other obligations. So I've got some really awesome guests lined up. So just watch my site or at csharpcorner.com when I announce those really soon. Also, forget COVID is still, we're still having over 300 people in the US die a day from COVID. If you're not in the US, we reached over 1 million people dead now in the US from COVID this week, which is a very sad milestone. So please be careful. I'm going to be wearing my mask on the plane tomorrow, even though I'm sick. I still don't want to get COVID. So please be careful out there. Listen to your medical professionals. Please donate blood. I was supposed to donate this weekend, but of course I can't because I'm running a fever. So please donate to your local blood bank. Every blood bank in the world has got a shortage right now, and they really need your help. It's really easy for you to do. It doesn't cost you anything, and it makes you feel better for helping up to 3 people from one donation. So I hope you go do that, and let me know if you do. Also, as every week, please email suggestions, things like that, what guests you want on, what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, to Rockin Code World at csharpcorner.com. I'm sorry I didn't get to say hi to the few people who said hi. I'll get you to you next time. So with that, I'll see you on June 4th. See you later, geeks.